I'm a 43-year-old woman who worked as a landscape gardener for many years until an accident made it impossible for me to continue with the physical work. After spending 12 years as a stay-at-home mom, I started working in the office of a large landscaping company in 2020. I was hired as an assistant to management, reporting directly to one of the chief operating officers, who I'll call my boss. My job initially involved handling supporting paperwork for the company. A few months after I started, they hired a junior manager who had just finished her master's degree. This was her first real job, so she had a lot to learn. At first, I helped her with paperwork and showed her how our programs worked. I thought we got along well despite being complete opposites. In spring 2021, our department moved to new offices, and the junior manager and I ended up sharing an office. Around the same time, my role changed. Instead of handling day-to-day paperwork, I now focused exclusively on surveying, getting all the measurements needed to correctly bill our clients. That's when our problem started. I'm on the ADHD spectrum, which means I have habits like unconsciously fiddling with things and sometimes talking to myself. These behaviors seemed to really annoy the junior manager. She needed absolute silence while working, while I preferred listening to music with headphones. Every time something I did disturbed her, I tried to stop doing it, whether it was mumbling, listening to music while she was in the office, or even drinking coffee because, as she put it, your slurping is disgusting. It's hot coffee, what do you expect? I wasn't allowed to comment on anything concerning her, which was hard because I'm naturally curious. Even though I loved my job and got along with everyone else in the company, this daily repression made me dread going to work. Things came to a head when one of our foremen was in the office. The junior manager gave him a task and he was visibly annoyed. I made a light-hearted comment to cheer him up, which worked. He chuckled and seemed in a better mood. But after he left, she exploded. She angrily accused me of undermining her authority and being disrespectful of her position. She emphasized that she was a manager while I was merely an assistant. She went straight to my boss to complain about me, saying she couldn't work with me because I was so obnoxious. Thankfully, my boss is super laid back. He talked to me to hear my side of the story, and 3 days later, I moved all my stuff to another, smaller office, where I've worked ever since. As I mentioned, my job involves surveying for all managers' projects, including the junior managers. She was extremely particular about how the plans had to be laid out and which items had to be on them. So when I did a survey and drafted plans for her projects, we had several discussions and corrections about tiny details that none of the other managers cared about. With everyone else, if I had a question about their projects, I would go to their office, see if they were free, and ask for the information I needed. Not with the junior manager. She demanded that I make appointments with her to schedule meetings to talk about these issues. This dragged out work on her projects to ridiculous lengths. She would also give me deadlines for finishing tasks, then take 1 to 4 weeks before even looking at what I had done. Then she would want to discuss it when I was already focused on the next project. It was incredibly frustrating. In December 2021, we had another falling out when she questioned me about a project I had finished in October. She got angry when I couldn't immediately recall all the details. I muttered something like, maybe don't wait 2 months after finishing the project to assemble the bill. And she exploded again. She furiously told me not to tell her how to do her work, insisting that she knew what she was doing and didn't have to put up with a lowly assistant. I walked away, and luckily, that was the last work day of 2021. When work started again in 2022, the junior manager called me to her office and laid down new rules. She told me that I was not to talk to her while working unless she approached me first or if we had a scheduled meeting. She added that I was only to talk to her about the tasks she assigned me and nothing else, making it clear that it wasn't my position to tell her how to do her job. She said breaks were fair game for conversation, but by then I had zero interest in talking to her. So that's how things went. Part of my job involved looking at charts of work that had already been done, how much soil had been brought in, how much of various materials had been used, to understand what needed to be included in the survey. In the junior manager's lists, I sometimes noticed typing mistakes, like entering square meters when cubic meters were required. These errors resulted in bills that were too high, which led to client complaints and bill reductions. I tried to tell the junior manager about these mistakes, but she cut me off before I could finish, reminding me again that I had to focus on my job and not speak to her unless she spoke to me first. For other managers, I would simply have corrected such mistakes after a quick consultation, but not for her. Over the following months, I noticed more of these mistakes in her projects, but I kept quiet. I didn't go to my boss about it either, because I didn't want to seem like I was trying to sabotage her. Throughout the summer, I noticed more and more mistakes, and projects that had been finished in spring still hadn't been billed. Yet somehow the junior manager found time to go on summer vacation. Twice. I observed undocumented items, false entries, missing entries, and other mistakes in her project lists, but said nothing. In early August, she finally assembled the bill for one of her bigger projects that had been finished months earlier and forbade anyone from talking to her while she worked on the next one. Then I received an email. The client who had received the bill had rejected it due to the number of mistakes and lack of verifiability. I was copied on the email as the surveyor, but the problem wasn't my surveys. It was that the junior manager hadn't transferred the results correctly. The client refused to pay and demanded immediate corrections. The sum was around 250,000 euros, money the company had been waiting for months. This was serious, so I decided to break my silence and tell the junior manager. She saw me through the glass door of her office, and before my hand even touched the handle, she shouted at me not to talk to her. Well, what could I do? I waited for about 15 minutes until my boss, who had been walking his dog during lunch break, returned to his computer. Of course, he had been copied on the email as well, and his roar made the walls shake. He stormed into the junior manager's office and tore her apart verbally. Afterward, he came to me and asked me to please correct the lists as much as I could. In the following days, he went through all of the junior manager's projects. Needless to say, she's been gone since September. She wanted me to do everything her way, and I tried to comply with so much nonsense. In the end, I complied so thoroughly that it got her fired. I met her during my senior year of high school. We attended different schools about 20 miles apart, but we connected online and hit it off right away. After dating for 4 months, we broke up because we couldn't see each other enough, but 6 months later, we got back together. Back then, she was sweet and caring. We talked every day and hung out at least 3 or 4 times a week. After she graduated, she got accepted to a university one town over from me. Her first semester was amazing. We'd spend nights in her dorm together, and I'd drive her to work at the pizza shop where she got a part-time job. It was young love, or so I thought. She started hanging out with her co-workers after work. It didn't bother me. I go see my friends and let her have fun. They would smoke and drink. One night, she tried something stronger, and while I was uneasy, I told her I wasn't thrilled but respected her honesty. College stuff happens, right? By this point, we've been together for just over 2 years. One afternoon, I dropped her off at the train station on campus so she could meet friends in the city for the weekend. I promised to pick her up Sunday. What I didn't know was that at that party, she met a drug dealer and they hit it off. Her habits got worse over time. I had started working night shifts, so I wasn't sleeping over much unless it was a weekend when she wasn't busy studying. For the next 2.5 years, she was sleeping over at this dealer's house when I wasn't around. I began to suspect she was cheating but convinced myself I was just being insecure. We started fighting more, yelling at each other over every little thing. She would demand I bring alcohol when I visited. She would insist that I bring vodka when I came over, and when I explained that I couldn't afford it until payday, she would accuse me of being cheap and promise to pay me back. But she never gave me the money. After a few times, I started taking it from her wallet or the shoebox where she hid cash. I never told her. I just take $40 because she never had the extra dollar and change, so I started rounding up. Sometimes I'd take it out of her bank account when she sent me to get money for her to buy more drugs. Eventually, she got me to meet her dealer, whom I quickly befriended. I told him about her plan to rob him for drugs and money. I warned him that she was planning to steal his stash the next time she visited. He seemed surprised and asked if we weren't close, and I sadly admitted that I had thought we were. As he went to another room to get her stuff for me to deliver, I told him I wasn't into hard drugs. I explained that I didn't use that stuff and suggested he could just put some baking soda in the package if he still wanted the money. He smoked me up and gave me fake drugs for her, which made her furious. I would also pocket the money because her dealer didn't want $20 for just baking soda. Later, the dealer saw her with another guy and texted me about it. She told the dealer she had been dating this other guy for 2.5 years and never dated me. At that point, we had been together for almost 5 years. I was crushed. I sat there thinking about how low things had fallen and felt like I was to blame. I had allowed myself to be in a mentally and physically abusive relationship. She was using me, and I had ignored it. My friends felt they couldn't tell me because I wouldn't listen. My family hated her. I stayed for 6 more months to get my revenge. I would take money as often as I could, over $1,000 in that short time from her bank, wallet, and shoebox. Her aunt left her a car, but she didn't have a license. I gave an anonymous tip about it. The car was impounded and she was fined. I picked her up afterward to see her crying and loved every second of it. She complained bitterly about the car being taken and the huge fine she couldn't afford to pay. I pretended to sympathize, telling her how sorry I was to hear about her troubles. When she got the car back, I put sugar in the gas tank so it wouldn't start. She blamed the impound lot but couldn't prove anything. Finally, summer ended and it was time for her to move back to college for her last year. Or so she thought. I took 2 overtime shifts that day so I couldn't help her move, which caused her to throw the biggest fit ever. She yelled at me saying I knew how important moving day was and accused me of taking shifts on purpose. I simply told her I needed the money and couldn't turn down overtime. I found out her other boyfriend wasn't allowed on campus after being caught with drugs, so her family moved her in, and that night I went to see her because she left stuff in my car, and she had some of my hoodies. When I arrived, she was dismissive. She told me to just put her stuff down and leave because she was having people over and needed to shower. As she got in the shower, I put her stuff down, grabbed my hoodies and anything else that was mine, including her TV, gaming console, all the games, and her tablet that I had paid for. I also took pictures of her drugs with her student ID badge visible. I went into the bathroom to tell her I was leaving. I let her know I was heading out and she just dismissed me, telling me to go without saying anything affectionate like, I love you, or drive safe, or even, see you later. On my way out, I stopped at the campus police station and reported the drugs. I showed them the pictures and told them which room. They checked it out, had me identify her, and arrested her. Watching her cry as they led her away was satisfying. Her other boyfriend wasn't pleased about her getting kicked out of college and threatened me. I spent 3 hours on the phone with him explaining how she and I had been together for over 5 years. We slowly pieced things together and realized how she had played him for drugs and me for rides and convenience. Later, I heard on the news that they had a fight, and he was arrested for domestic violence and assaulting a police officer. He got 10 years because of his anger issues, the assault, domestic abuse, drugs, and an unregistered firearm. 3 years have passed since then. I've met someone new who treats me with respect and has shown me that I deserve much better than what I settled for before. I've been working at this family-owned burger restaurant for about 3 years now. Most days are pretty routine. Take orders, serve food, clean up, repeat. The owner is a decent guy who treats us well, and most of our customers are regulars who know us by face, if not by name. Last Tuesday started like any other day. The lunch rush had just ended, and I was wiping down tables when this woman walked in. She sat down at one of my tables and barely looked at me when I approached with a menu and water. I greeted her warmly and asked if I could get her a drink to start. Without even looking up from her phone, she curtly demanded just water with no ice and insisted on having a straw. I brought her water and took her order, a basic cheeseburger and fries. Nothing complicated. When her food came out, I delivered it with my best customer service smile and asked if she needed anything else. She immediately complained that the fries were too salty. I looked at the fries. They looked perfectly normal to me, golden brown and lightly salted, just like all our fries. I apologized for the issue and offered to get her a fresh batch. She responded rudely, saying I should be sorry and that the situation was completely unacceptable. I took the fries back to the kitchen and explained to our cook what happened. He raised an eyebrow but made a fresh batch, being careful to use even less salt than usual. I brought them back out. She immediately complained again, saying they were still too salty, and asked if we were deaf because she had supposedly asked for no salt. I apologized again and explained that she hadn't specified no salt in her original order but offered to have the kitchen make another batch with no salt at all. She responded condescendingly, claiming it was obvious that's what she wanted, and questioned if she looked like someone who would consume that much sodium. The third batch came out completely salt-free. By this point, everyone in the kitchen was watching through the service window. The woman took one fry, bit it, and made a face like she'd just eaten something rotten. She complained that now they were completely bland and demanded to speak to a manager right away. Our manager, who'd been watching this unfold, came over immediately. He greeted her politely and asked about the issue with her fries. The woman angrily told him that I kept bringing her inedible food, complaining that first they were drowning in salt, then they were completely tasteless, and questioned if it was really so difficult to make proper French fries. The manager apologized for the inconvenience and explained that our fries are cooked to order and that we'd be happy to prepare them however she'd like. He then suggested a light sprinkle of salt. She became furious, accusing him of talking down to her and claiming she knew what good food tasted like. At this point, she grabbed the basket of fries and flung it across the table. Fries went everywhere, on the floor, on nearby tables, even hitting another customer. She loudly demanded a full refund and a free meal for what she called the emotional distress we had caused her. The manager told her that he couldn't give her a refund after she had thrown food at our staff and other customers and asked her to leave. She refused, asking if he knew who she was and threatening to sue the restaurant for food poisoning and write reviews so bad we'd be out of business within a week. She was screaming now, her face turning red. The entire restaurant had gone silent, with everyone staring at our table. The owner, who usually stays in the back office, came out when he heard the commotion. He asked what the problem was. The woman ranted that the entire staff was incompetent, claiming she'd been served inedible food 3 times, and that the manager was refusing to refund her. The owner looked at the fries scattered across the floor, then at the security camera mounted in the corner of the ceiling. He told her that she needed to leave the restaurant, mentioning that we had the entire interaction on camera, including her throwing food at the staff. She accused him of threatening her and said her lawyer would contact him by the end of the day. The owner invited her to have her lawyer call and insisted she leave before he called the police for disorderly conduct. She stormed out, knocking over a chair on her way to the door. We all breathed a sigh of relief when she was gone, and I started cleaning up the mess. The next day, I came into work to find everyone gathered around the owner's computer. He had posted the security footage on the restaurant's social media accounts, tagging local news outlets with a caption, "When the customer is always right, goes wrong. Salt your own fries, Karen." The video went viral almost immediately. Local news picked it up, then it spread to national sites. People were commenting left and right, many sharing their own stories about dealing with entitled customers. 3 days later, a different woman came into the restaurant. She introduced herself as the HR director at a local marketing firm. Apparently, the woman from the video worked for them, and after seeing her behavior, they had terminated her employment. She apologized on behalf of the company and gave everyone gift cards as a gesture of goodwill. The owner permanently banned the woman from all 3 of his restaurant locations. Every time someone orders fries now, we all exchange knowing looks. And whenever a new employee starts, showing them the salt video is part of their training on how not to handle difficult situations.